The Santa Claus Incineration. On December 24, 2008, the suburban community of Covina, California gathered for traditional Christmas Eve celebration. Families exchanged gifts and children anticipated Santa's arrival. At one home on Knoll Crest Drive, a family hosted their annual holiday party. Among the expected guests was a man dressed as Santa Claus. At approximately 11:30 p.m., a figure dressed in a full Santa Claus costume appeared at the front door, carrying what looked like a large wrapped gift. Inside were 9 people, including his ex-wife. When a girl ran to greet Santa, he raised a 9mm semi-automatic handgun and shot her in the face. She survived, but what followed was methodical slaughter. He stepped inside and began firing at the partygoers. The sound of gunshots was partially masked by Christmas music playing through the house. He moved room to room with calculated precision, shooting his victims at close range. Those who tried to flee were hunted down and executed, but the gunfire was only the beginning. The package he carried contained a homemade pressurized device filled with racing fuel. After the shooting, he unwrapped it and sprayed the flammable liquid throughout the home. The racing fuel ignited instantly. Temperatures reached over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit within seconds. The house became an inferno. Victims who had survived the gunshots now faced a more agonizing death. Forensic reports later revealed that at least 3 victims were still alive when the fire started. Smoke inhalation and thermal burns became the final cause of death. The fire spread so rapidly that escape was impossible. The home's Christmas decorations accelerated the blaze. First responders arrived to find the structure fully engulfed. The heat was so intense they couldn't approach. Inside, 9 people perished in the flames. The bodies were burned beyond recognition. Medical examiners later required dental records for identification. Some victims were found huddled together, having died trying to shield each other from the inferno. After setting the home on fire, he changed out of the Santa suit and drove to his brother's house in Sylmar, where he was later found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the mouth at around 3 a.m. The fatal Yuletide Brawl. On Christmas night, December 25, 1895, the streets of St. Louis were quiet as families celebrated in their homes. But at a saloon, the atmosphere was anything but peaceful. The establishment on the corner of 11th and Morgan was known for its rough clientele and late-night gambling. Among those present was a 31-year-old pimp and underworld figure. At approximately 10 p.m., he entered the saloon wearing his trademark Stetson hat and a diamond stick pin. He was well known in St. Louis's sporting district, an area filled with brothels and gambling houses. Also in the saloon that night was a 31-year-old Levy hand with political connections. The 2 men knew each other casually. They had shared drinks before. But that night, the conversation turned to politics. The pimp was a staunch Democrat. The Levy hand supported the Republicans. As the evening progressed and more whiskey was consumed, the disagreement became heated. At 11:30 p.m., the Levy hand reportedly grabbed his Stetson off his head. "You've been talking too much about me," he said, holding the hat away. For the pimp, this was more than a minor insult. The Stetson was a symbol of his status. "I'll kill any man who touches my hat," he had once boasted. "Give me back my hat," he demanded, pulling a .44 caliber Smith & Wesson gun from his coat. The Levy hand returned the hat, saying, "You've got your hat back. Now put away that gun." But the pimp had been publicly disrespected. In his world, such an offense demanded a response. "I'm going to kill you," he replied calmly. He aimed the gun at the Levy hand's abdomen and pulled the trigger. The single shot pierced his stomach and exited through his back. The Levy hand crumpled to the floor, clutching his midsection as blood spread across his white shirt. "Stack, you've shot me," he gasped. His final words were reportedly, "I don't want to die," but the wound was fatal. The bullet had torn through his stomach, liver, and intestines. Emergency surgery was attempted at City Hospital, but he died at 3 a.m. on December 26th. As he took his final breath, a uniquely American legend was born. The incident would be immortalized in the folk song Stack-O-Lee, later known as Stagger Lee, recorded hundreds of times over the next century.